Ladies and gentlemen, live on the Fuse UK, it's the one and only, the man of the hour, the man with the power, the man too sweet to be sour. He is your friend, he is my friend, but he's not the friend behind the person standing behind you, Luke Hughes.
Yes, people, what's happening? Nice one for coming back to the Fuse UK. It's much appreciated as always. Got a special guest on the show tonight, UFC veteran and now light heavyweight contender in the BKFC, none other than Mr. Danny Mitchell. What's happening, bro? You good?
Now then, yeah, all good, mate. How are you?
I'm all well, thank you, mate. How's it feeling after your debut in the BKFC?
Yeah, I feel good, mate. My hands were pretty swollen, but today's the first day I can actually see my knuckles. So yeah, no breaks, so we're good to go.
Good man, good man. I was wondering, mate, if we could start this podcast. This is how I'd normally do it with the other lads. Is just basically talking about how your fighting career started, where it all began for you.
Yeah, no worries. So I started actually training in martial arts when I was 10 years old.
Right.
I wanted to train. I wanted to do boxing when I was a young lad. I always remember I had a pair of boxing gloves and I wanted to do boxing, but at the time, as a young kid, my mum and dad didn't want me to do it. My dad had boxed and done judo, and he were actually forced to do boxing. My dad, so he didn't want me to be in that same position. I wanted to do it, but he was forced. He had a couple of fights, but he didn't actually want to fight. Anyway, you know, after a few years of blagging my parents, they wouldn't let me go boxing. But a friend of mine was his dad owned a local taekwondo school, and I showed a bit of interest. So yeah, I ended up getting like a free trial at this taekwondo school, and we got a month. We got 30 days free. And that's something that I started to offer at my gym as well. You know, something I remembered getting as a kid. That's something that I, you know, I've offered at my gym. But I got 30 days for free, and I just trained every single day, and I loved it. I loved learning, and I just loved martial arts. I had a passion for martial arts. I was into all these like Bruce Lee films and stuff like that as a kid. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, kickboxer and all that business, blood sport. So I just wanted to learn. So I was in this gym doing taekwondo every day. And yeah, I knew that at that point, 10 years old, I'm training. I knew that martial arts were just something I wanted to just get into, to explore. So I started looking around for like other gyms and other places where I could train. Obviously, I'm a young kid at this point. I can't drive or anything. So it's a case of getting on my mum and dad's case and getting them to take me to these gyms and take me to these places. So I ended up traveling around. I started doing kickboxing, Thai boxing. Eventually, in a roundabout way, I started doing boxing. So, which is what I originally wanted to do. So I've always had a love for boxing, but I got into it through the martial arts. That were kind of. I think my mum and dad saw martial arts as, you know, it's safe, it's respectful, you know, all this kind of business. So that were like my gateway, if you like, into training. So I just train. I mean, I was training all the time. I'm at school. I'm a little kid, training every day. Yeah. Every day. My dad built me a little gym at home. I had some mats, a punch bag, all this lot. So I was if I want in the gym doing a class, I'd be at home training in my own little gym. So I just loved it. I started competing it when I was 12. I had some kickboxing fights, and started to go into competitions and stuff like that, getting into it that way. And then, yeah, just as things progress, you sort of see, you know, so I'm doing kickboxing, then I see these guys doing Thai boxing. So I'm like, oh, that's the next stage. I want to do that next.
Yeah.
I start training with them. Then I see guys grappling on floor, doing submissions. You know, right, I want to learn that next. And it was just a case of, I just wanted to keep learning and progressing. And yeah, I ended up I mean, by the time I'd left school, I'd had, maybe 40 fights as a junior.
Fucking hell.
And then, yeah, I was straight into it, really, just competing. I left school. I opened a gym at 18, and yeah, I'm 37 now. So it's been a long time, and this is all I've done. This is my life. A lot of people, martial arts, fighting, or whatever, it's a hobby. But for me, this is I've never had a job. I've just had fights, trained people to fight. This is it, really.
What were you like in school, Danny?
I were a clever lad at school. I was pretty quiet, and my school was a rough school. I went to a rough school, Thorn Grammar School. It was previously a grammar school, but that was its name. It was just a regular secondary school when I was there, but it was the bottom of the league table for Yorkshire and Humberside. So it was the worst school in terms of performance. And I remember some of the teachers were like the teachers who'd been kicked out of other schools. So we ended up with like the worst teachers. And there were some bad kids there. Like I were a good kid, really, but some of the kids there were, they abused together teachers and stuff. Yeah. And I remember locking teachers in cupboards and that all day. And just abusing them. But that school, it got knocked down when I left. I was one of the last years in that school. So when I left, they knocked it down and they've built like a new academy now. And yeah, it's doing really well. But yeah, when I was there, I was pretty quiet, but from doing martial arts, I was quite confident. So martial arts taught me, because by the time I got to secondary school, I'm already into martial arts. So it taught me to be respectful is one thing. But I think that's why I was, a good kid. Yeah. I was quite respectful, but it also gave me quite a lot of confidence. So I didn't really get bullied as such. I know a lot of people have they come from this thing where when they were kids they were bullied and they got picked on, and I got bullied as much as the next man. Do you know what I mean? Everybody gets called names and stuff at school, but I was quite confident and I was quite articulate. So yeah, I just got through school. I was all right. I was one of the cleverer kids at school just through natural ability more than anything.
Did you have in your head, like, did you know you were fighting?
No. So when I was ready to leave school, and it's like, right now you need to get a job and you need to be thinking about your future, I weren't really thinking about being a fighter because I didn't understand that you could make money doing it. I just love martial arts. So my initial thoughts when I was leaving school is I want to set up a gym and I want to teach people. That was the main driving force. And then if you want to teach people something, you need to be good at it yourself.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to just start teaching martial arts and, I've just learned from books or videos or whatever. I wanted to be going out there, learning off people and competing myself. So the fighting was kind of a way to almost to advertise myself as somebody who knew what he was doing. So I could train people and say, listen, I've done this. This is what you need to do. And yeah, I'm still kind of doing that now, really.
Class. So out of all the disciplines you did training, which one was your favorite? Was it the boxing?
No, right. So initially not. So I wanted to, I wanted to do boxing. I'm training all these martial arts. I'm doing taekwondo, karate, judo, anything. If somebody opened the fucking kung fu gym in my village, I would have been there. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what it was. I just had a hunger for knowledge, and I just wanted to learn. So I did all these mad martial arts. I did stick fighting. I did everything. Do you know what I mean? Whatever you can. I had these mad fucking stick fights when I was youth. Yeah, honestly, there's some of the fights I've had, the competitions where the rules, no one even knew the rules back then. You're talking this is early 2000s. MMA is new. Yeah. So I'd turn up for an MMA fight and the rules would be different every time. Sometimes I'd be fighting pro rules on some mats with 10 people watching. it was just crazy like that. But the first sort of martial art that I fell in love with all martial arts, but the one that I really loved when I got exposed to it was jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I'd watched the UFC, I'd seen Royce Gracie win, and I'm like, this is what I need to do. And then when I started learning it and started getting good at it, I was like, this is it. Like, I don't need anything else. I don't need striking. I don't need anything. Like, this is the ultimate martial art. And I sort of went all in then on jiu-jitsu. And I'm having MMA fights, and I'm not even really training properly. I'm just doing grappling and having MMA fights. That's kind of where I was at. I didn't have a coach per se. I'm just coaching myself at this stage.
Was that just with confidence? Take it upon jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so I'm training with different coaches. I'm going around, but I'm learning from books. I've got I've got my own gym, like my own mat space at this point, and I'm getting my mates. We're training. We're learning from books, DVDs. I'm going to different gyms, training with people, but a lot of it was off my own back. It was just my own. Just figuring it out myself. But yeah, I fell in love with jiu-jitsu, and I thought that that's it. Like, this is all you need, really. But as things have progressed over time, now MMA is it's a sport in itself. You need to have everything. You need the full package, don't you? You need striking, wrestling, grappling. Like, you need all these things. So gradually over time, I started putting all these pieces back together, and then so boxing was one of the sort of final pieces that I thought, this is what I really loved. And I had some boxing fights. I fought actually as a professional boxer for a year, but the professional boxing board of control didn't really like the fact that I'm involved with. I was doing MMA at the same time, and they don't really like that. So I had to knock that on the head. Otherwise, I would have done a much more professional boxing. I think they're getting a little bit more lenient with it now. But yeah.
They're a bit tight under the BBCC, the BBOCC, sorry. I've heard that they've been taking the licenses off fighters lately who've had depression, seen the doctor about depression and that, like, even if it was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's it. To be fair, a lot of what they do with the medicals and stuff like that, they are trying to protect people. But yeah, they have got a lot of a hatred, if you like, towards like MMA, bare-knuckle, like, all this kind of stuff. I think it's a lot of older people who are involved in like the running of it, and I think once that sort of old guard's gone, and there's some, because a lot of the like pro boxing cut men and stuff are ringside at BKFC.
Yeah,
a lot of the people who have been involved in professional boxing are there, so there is some crossover. Eventually, it would be nice to see, professional boxers allowed to also do bare knuckle and to fight simultaneously in both sports. That'd be great. But I think we could be a few years away from that.
I think do it in America because Austin Trout's still ranked with the WBC. I think he's about 7th, and he still fights BKFC as well.
Yeah, that's it. So America's different. So when I fought in America for MMA, you get licensed by the state. Yeah, so I fought in Kansas. So I was licensed by that state, and that license allowed me to fight professional boxing or professional MMA. So it was the same license for both sports. So it's a lot better there. Whereas over here, obviously, bare knuckle and MMA is, technically unlicensed. There is no governing body. There is no licensing body. Whereas the Border Control have got the monopoly over professional boxing.
Yeah.
So that's the issue that we have in this country is, the Border Control have got the monopoly, and anything that isn't boxing, they just don't like. So that's the problem. I think America have, they've got it a little bit better over there.
Yeah, 100%. When did the UFC call come? How was that feeling?
The UFC call came, I think it was 2014. So I'd had about 20 pro fights in MMA at this point. and I had a couple of losses. I started my career 8-0 in MMA. I was 8-0. Everybody's saying I'm destined for big things. Obviously, the UFC is the goal. But then I lost 2 fights back to back, and then I was winning and losing a couple, and that was it. Sort of in my head, that UFC dream was not dead, but it seemed far away.
Yeah.
But then it actually just came up on my memories today. So all those years ago today, I had a fight in Sweden, and I took it on 4 days' notice. I turned up and I beat a UFC veteran in Sweden on a big event, and that was the fight. It was just literally a random fight. I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." I turned up, I beat the guy, and it was through that fight where the UFC noticed me. I must have been on the radar, and then I got the call. I was actually asleep in the gym. It was snowing outside. It was absolutely fucking freezing. And, I was asleep in the gym, and I got an email in the middle of the night from the UFC. I had a contract and everything like that, and so I read it, went back to sleep. I woke up in the morning. I thought I'd been like hallucinating because it was so cold. I thought I just had some mad hallucination because I was freezing. But it turned out it was legit, and I got signed to the UFC. So that were a good day.
Obviously over the States, like, did you prefer to fight over the States than you did in the UK?
I fought all over the world, but fighting in the States fighting away in general is good, just because you don't have the pressure of like selling tickets and stuff like that. I think that's a big part of it. You don't have to worry about any of that. All you got to worry about is fighting, making weight and fighting. So for me, my favourite place to fight was actually Sweden, just because the fans are so like respectful over there. So I fought in Sweden twice, and I've cornered many of my fighters in Sweden. And every time the fans are just, I'm landing punches and the fans are cheering, fans are going crazy, they're coming up to me afterwards. It's like they don't care about who's fighting who. Do you know what I mean? It's all about the fighters. Like they just love the fighters. They see it more as a sport over there. It's more like we're sports players, and that's what they love. So whereas Americans are still into that. They just want to see people bleed. That's like their thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's only just legalized over Sweden as well, hasn't it? The MMA and professional boxing and that. Not like it was quite a while back, but not very long ago compared to everywhere else.
Yeah, so I think when did I fight in Sweden? I actually fought, when I fought in Sweden, it was 2010. So I fought professionally in Sweden then, but I know some of the other Scandinavian countries. I know Iceland. I believe it's only just been legalized in Iceland.
Right.
Because a lot of the Icelandic fighters were coming over to the UK to fight all the time because they just had nothing there. France as well is another place. I think in France, professional MMA was illegal. So what they used to do is they had these fights where what they call pro MMA is actually kickboxing and grappling. Yeah. You're not allowed to punch on the ground. So a lot of their fighters, when they were coming over, and maybe they were 8-0 pro, they'd never been hit on the ground before.
Oh God.
Yeah. So it were like because of their rules. But I think that's changed now. I think it's regular rules because the UFC now are so big that every country wants to host the UFC.
Yeah.
So they're changing the laws now just to adapt to that.
Yeah, it's massive now. Like, did you ever see MMA being as big as it is when you were younger?
No. Yes and no. It was more of an underground thing. When I first got into it, so I didn't actually fall in love with MMA. MMA has evolved into what it is now. Like, and this is why I really love Bare-knuckle, because when I watch MMA now, it's sanitized. Yeah, it's not the sport that I fell in love with back in the day. So what I fell in love with back in the day is the original UFCs. Yeah, the first UFC I watched was UFC 3. So you're talking bare knuckle MMA, no time limit, very limited rules. That's what I actually fell in love with. So and that's what I wanted to see carry on. But obviously that can't be mainstream. And that's an underground sport. So what you see now is obviously the mainstream sanitized version of that sport, gloves, all these rules, which is great. It's fantastic. It's given me a career. But at the same time, it's not the thing that I originally wanted to do. What I wanted to do was have to do Vale Tudo, as it was called back in the day. I've got it tattooed on my hands, look, Vale Tudo. Yeah, that's what the Brazilians called no rules fighting. That's why I called my gym AVT, Asylum Vale Tudo. So that's what I always wanted to do. You've got like King of the Streets now, which is obviously probably the
What do you
biggest.
think?
Say that again, sorry.
Is it echoing there?
Yeah, just a tiny bit. It's all right though.
What do you think of King of the Streets and other organisations like that and these no rules fights where they can, obviously I know you won't agree with a bite and an eye gouging, but what do you think of the other, obviously the way they're doing it?
Yeah, so I do like it. I like that underground scene. That's what I've always been into. But yeah, I think with the biting, the eye gouging, even the concrete floor. Like if I were going to put, because I've always thought over the years I'd love to put like a Vale Tudo event on, but I'd do it in a ring, like the old school Brazilian fights were in a ring or on some kind of matted.
It's got to be area. Hasn't it?
Yeah, that's it. So it's like the concrete. Yeah, I just think someone's going to get their head slammed into that. I mean, it's bad enough anyway. You're getting headbutted and soccer kicked and stuff. So yeah, I just. But I like the idea of it. But I just look at the King of the Streets and I just think this is going to go badly wrong, like at some point soon. But yeah, I was talking to Robbie Brown. Obviously, he's fought on King of the Streets and that, and he was telling me all about it. And yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't know if I would do it. I definitely want a Vale Tudo fight, but I don't know if I'd do on the concrete and that. We'll see.
Yeah, well, what do you think? He's got some balls, hasn't he, young Robbie?
Oh yeah, I love him, mate. I love him. He's a top lad. I didn't actually see his fight. I think he was either fight before me or two before me. So I was warming up and that. I was in the zone. So I need to go back and watch his fight back. But yeah, I think he's a top lad. And you know what? I was in that changing room looking around, and everybody in there. I'm looking at all these fighters on the card, and I thought, everyone here is just fucking top fellas. It were a pleasure to be a part of it, and everyone's the funniest thing is everyone's pretty much sound with each other. Everyone's shaking hands and that, and we're all friends.
Yeah,
we just go out there and fight. Robbie put a good post on earlier. I think he's having a beer, isn't he, with
Foxy.
With Foxy, yeah. So yeah, man, it's yeah, we're all friends with each other. It's the people in the crowd are all falling out. It's mad, really.
Yeah, it's crazy, mate. Because like you're seeing the fight weekend there, everyone's just talking to each other in the hotel and that all weekend down. Like there's no anger or animosity between the fighters at all.
No. I think it's good for people to see that though. Like I don't think people realise when they're watching fights, they think that like we hate each other, we're trying to kill each other and that. But really, we're all in it for the same reason and that, and we're all friends at the end of the day. Obviously, there's some rivalries that appear and what have you, but it's all just part of the game. So yeah, I think it's good for people to see that.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on to this, when did your call come along for BKFC? What made you want to turn over the bare-knuckle?
I mean, it's been on the cards for a long time. Obviously, I've been training Rico for the last fucking 12 years or something. And, Rico's doing really well. And, yeah, I've always been, training with him, sparring with him. And we have a lot of other guys who are competing bare-knuckle coming down to the gym and training with us. And I'm giving them advice and doing stuff. sparring with them, and it's like, it's always been in the back of my mind, like, you know, I'm sparring with these people thinking I can do this. You know what I mean? I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it just dropped on that. That I dropped on this event. It's just one of the things. Like I say, it's not something that I took lightly. It's something that's been in the pipeline for a long time. I was just waiting for the right time, and I've actually had a knee injury, which has put me out of like grappling and stuff like that. Obviously, I teach grappling. I do a lot of grappling, but I ain't grappled now for about 6 months because of this knee injury. I'm waiting for an operation. So my operation was actually the day of the fight. So I've been waiting for this call for this operation, and I finally I had a missed call. When I checked my messages, my operation was set for 3 o'clock on the day of the fight. So what I didn't want to do is obviously tell them I'm fighting and potentially lose that operation. So what I thought on the day I'll just ring them and tell them I'm poorly. I'll tell them I've got COVID or some shit like that, and then they'll put it back a couple of weeks. But then obviously the day of the fight, I'm thinking about the fight. Do you know what I mean? I look at the time and it's 4 o'clock, and I thought, shit, I forgot to ring him. So yeah, so that went out of the window. But because of this knee injury, I can't really kick, can't really grapple. So I've been exclusively doing boxing. So that's why I ended up taking this fight, because I thought it's nice to have a goal. You know, I'm doing all this boxing training. Just nice to have that goal at the end of it all. And it worked out pretty good.
Was it everything that you'd expected? What were they like? I know people say like they don't get nervous and things like that, but what was the nerves like compared to like your MMA fights and things like that?
Yeah, again, it's like I've had so many fights now. So that was my 107th fight. All in all, that's everything. That's amateur, pro, boxing, kickboxing, and MMA. Everything added together as a junior as well. So yeah, I posted that picture where I've just got like a smile on my face. I felt happy, fine. I didn't really have any nerves. I just warmed up and I felt good. It's just one of them. I felt comfortable in there, and it's not like, because I have actually fought bare knuckle before. I had a fight at Sheffield Arena, 2017. That were a bare knuckle fight, and then I actually fought as a kid as well. I had an organised fight. I was only 16 years old, and I had an organised bare knuckle fight, which I didn't actually know was bare knuckle until right before. There was all kinds of betting and stuff going on it, and I thought I had my hands wrapped. My hands were wrapped with canvas wraps, and they were gaffer taped over the top. And then I'm like, right, what gloves do I wear? And they're like, nah, you don't need gloves. But I was a young lad at the time, and I was like, yeah, this is great. I'm gonna have a bare knuckle fight. So luckily I won. It was a 30-minute fight actually. There was no rounds. Went for 30 minutes. I weren't a very big puncher, but I was super fit. And I fought a grown man. I was 16. I think that the other kid was 20 year old. We fought for 30 minutes, and he ended up quitting in the end. So I won. And I remember like telling my mates, like, I've had this bare knuckle fight, and they're like, oh, we don't even believe you. Like, it was mad. It were mad times. This is like early 2000s.
Because there won't have been videos as much as now, will
exactly, yeah. So now it's like everybody's filming and stuff like that. But then it was just like, it had been arranged by a guy I'd met in a gym in Doncaster, in Nobody's Gym. And it was basically they just put money on me. Basically, they were just betting against each other, getting these two young lads to fight and putting money down. That's all it was. It was just a little betting racket that I ended up getting involved in. So that was like my first experience of it, and I really enjoyed it. I was just a young kid. I was buzzing just to do any kind of fighting. Like I say, I'm fighting, kickboxing, boxing, jiu-jitsu, karate. I'm doing karate tournaments. Like any kind of fighting, I was in. So I did have a little bit of experience coming into it of that kind of. There was nothing. I weren't thinking in my head, I've got no gloves on. That weren't an issue to me.
Yeah.
It was just another normal day.
Craziness. Is this something that you're going to stay with now then? Are you going to stay at light heavyweight and stay fighting bare knuckle in the BKFC, or was it just a one-off thing?
So when I did this fight, all I was thinking about is this one fight. I didn't want to think too far in the future. But now, yeah, I mean, I had David Round message me before the fight, just saying, whoever wins this out of you and John, I won't mind having a dance with you. So yeah, that's one that could potentially be on the table. Me and Roundy. I know Roundy's a pretty tough guy. I'm surprised we haven't actually fought already in MMA, because we're the same weight in MMA, and he's been around the block in MMA as well. So yeah, I'm very surprised we haven't already met each other at some point. But yeah, I'm open to that. We'll just see what happens. But yeah, I'm definitely up for another one after that.
Wicked, mate, because we need more fighters like yourself coming over in the UK, people who've got that name in the background, and obviously it just looks a lot better for the BKFC UK, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks good, and I think they're doing a good job. Like, the quality of fighters on that show, I thought it was really good. And how they promote it, just the production of the event and that, I was really impressed. I fought on a lot of shows around the world, so yeah, they're doing a good job. They're pushing it forward. Like you say, it's just good to get more names. You're getting ex-pro boxers, ex-MMA fighters. It just raises the profile, doesn't it? So, but yeah, it's good. I enjoy it, and then, like I say, I'm up for fighting again next year. I don't know what their schedule is next year for shows in the UK. But yeah, there's plenty to go at.
Yeah, that's good, mate. And the ring in the BKFC, what did you like the ring? And obviously, because they're not ropes, are they? They're like steel bars.
Nah, they're made out of steel. So yeah, this is something that I've spoke about before. But my view on this bare knuckle thing, and this is why I think that Rico and like the people who are training with me are quite good at this style. I think that bare knuckle boxing is more like MMA boxing than it is professional boxing.
Yeah.
Because obviously in MMA, I'm sparring. I've been sparring for the last 15 years in 4-ounce gloves, tiny little gloves where I can grab, I can hold, I can do all this stuff. So nothing really has to change. All I do is remove the kicks, the elbows, the knees. The punching of MMA is more similar to bare knuckle punching, in my opinion. Whereas you get pro boxers who have got a tight guard like this, swinging big punches, lots of combinations. I think that style doesn't work as well for bare knuckle. I think the MMA style works much better. And like I say, we're used to small gloves. So, obviously you can't spar bare knuckle. You can't spar with no gloves on. There'll be some idiots out there who probably are doing that. But when we spar, we just spar in little MMA gloves. So we get, I'll spar in big boxing gloves as well. You do need them rounds in. But the sparring in the little gloves, I think, is one of the keys. Getting used to that kind of style. Getting used to having the hands open and having the hands free. And you can see that in my fight. You can see the style I was using.
Yeah.
It's not your conventional boxing style, but it's a style that works really well for bare knuckle. So yeah, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different, but like I say, that's what Rico's working as well. I think that's why he's had a lot of success. Because Rico's not a boxer. He don't come from a boxing background. He comes from an MMA background.
Yeah.
And he's just using that style in bare knuckle.
I think like bare knuckle boxing obviously is different to the BKFC as well, because it's called like bare knuckle fighting for a reason, and you're allowed to grab round the back of the head and stay in the clinch and just keep it and things like that.
Yeah, it's different. I prefer those rules. Obviously, coming from MMA, it's much better for me to be grabbing and stuff like that. And I think it gives you a bit more freedom in what you're doing. I think that's the key. It gives you that freedom, so you can hold a little bit, you can break, you can mix it up a little bit more, and I think that's important. I think it's more entertaining that way as well. You're not constantly getting broken up, and do you know what I mean? I think it makes for a bit more of an exciting fight with the grabbing and the holding and stuff. But yeah, definitely. I didn't actually use too much of it in the fight. I only used the clinch a couple of times. I use it way more in training.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely something that I like. Yeah, that I think works well for the sport.
Yeah, it's sort of unique to the sport as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like I say, it's a good way to get MMA guys to cross over against your pro boxers. Do you know what I mean? Because you conventional professional boxers should be outboxing your MMA fighters, but the fact that there's that little bit of clinch in there, that sort of evens it up a little bit. It's just another avenue where, like, this is why I like MMA. MMA is good because there's lots of ways to win. Yeah, so you can kick someone, knee someone, take them down, submit them. You can do all these things, and I think, obviously, in regular boxing, you're just punching them in the face, and that's it. Whereas at least with the BKFC rules, the clinching, it just gives you another avenue. Like if you're getting outboxed, you can clinch. Whereas conventional boxing, if you're getting outboxed, you're pretty much fucked. There's no other avenues really you can take. So I like the fact there's just that other little avenue where you can clinch, you can grab, and you can punch. And I think it just changes the dynamics a little bit. And the best fighters will be the people who adapt to that.
Yeah, and you're seeing some of the fights in BKFC, like technically some of the lads that are going in there, MMA lads, don't look great at all. They'll get in there with a good boxer, and as soon as the MMA lad grabs hold of them in the clinch, the boxer's like a fish out of water.
Yeah, that's it. It's a different game. When you're grabbing on, it's a different game. And I think, like you say, that's like the equalizer. That's how these MMA guys can beat, good boxers, because they can grab them and they can take them out of the comfort zone. So yeah, it's a good thing. I like it. It works for me anyway because I'm an MMA guy.
Yeah, definitely. And before we've been on nearly 40 minutes now, mate, I don't want to take too much up of your night, but is there anything else you can share with us, mate, before we wrap it up?
Not really. No. I just
sponsors or anything like that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I mean, everybody. Like, I've got too many sponsors to mention. I'm always on the lookout for more sponsors if people want to support. I am going to be fighting next year, and hopefully get a couple more bare-knuckle fights in. That would be nice. But yeah, everybody who bought a ticket, everybody who sent me messages and stuff. I was super grateful this week for everybody. I've had so many. Because I haven't really fought for a long time. So many people come out of the woodwork I haven't seen for years.
Yeah.
So it's great to see a lot of my friends and that there, people who I didn't expect to see. So yeah, just big thanks to everyone, and that's it really.
Wicked, mate. We'll stay in touch now, mate, and hopefully you'll have some news for us after Christmas.
Yeah, no worries. Hopefully.
Sweet, mate. Really appreciate you coming on, Danny, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, bro.
No worries. Cheers, mate. See you soon.
Bye-bye. Yes, people, really appreciate you tuning in there. Big up Danny Mitchell, absolute legend in the MMA game. But I'm going to put all his social medias in the description, so make sure you just head over there and give him a following. Big up.